And welcome to this week's Everyday Inclusion and Belonging, where we talk about everything under the sun that relates to diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging. I'm Mo Birkner-Boyt, founder of Moxie and the Everyday Inclusion app. I am a white woman with mid-late reddish hair. I got it straight today. I'm rocking some new frames. They are black, sort of semi-cat. I guess I'm like Johnny Cash. I'm all in black today. Black shirt with black vest. Behind me, I have some of my favorite books. And I was telling Rhett Burton, who is joining me as my guest today, that I'm so thrilled to be in conversation about that 11 months out of the year, Ida B. Wells, who you can see behind me, sits and looks at me all day long, reminding me to do the work. And during Black History Month, she sits behind me so that everybody can feel her presence. So today, boy, Rhett, you and I are going to cover a lot of topics from representation in kids' books to Black joy to unhoused and homelessness and our role in solving for that. So Rhett, please introduce yourself. I'm thrilled to be in conversation with you today.
Well, good afternoon, Mo. Hi, everybody out there. My name is Rhett Burton. I am a DEI practitioner, an author, a speaker, and I'm so excited to be here with you today. It is fitting that you talked about Ida B. Wells behind you, and symbolic that you and I are chatting today 97 years ago today on Sunday, February 7th, 1926. Carter G. Woodson invented Negro History Week, which has now morphed into Black History Month. And for you and I to have this conversation about Black joy, about some of the things that I've done and some of the influences that we have, I'm so thrilled. For those that are listening, I am a light-skinned man, light brown, curly hair with a black shirt and an almost full beard. So I'm so excited to be here chatting with you today.
So let's start first. You have written some kids' books. And let's talk about, and y'all, we will put the link where you can go and get these books. Let's talk about how important representation is, particularly in children's books.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. I have the book here. So first, let me give life to that. So I've written 7 books in total, 2 professional development books and 5 children's picture books. Here I have my combined work where you can read the book forwards and backwards with all of the characters that I've introduced. So we have the Super series. When I grow up, I want to be super healthy, super smart, and super rich, followed by Dentist Debbie, and my ode to my own child, something that I entitled My Melanated Munchkin. All of these books are inside of this book here. It can be read backwards and forwards. You can see it's nice and large, a lot of beautiful images, some from amazing illustrators, all of which are Black, needless to say. So I'm really excited about that. And when we think about why representation is important, it's important on so many levels. I want to take a little bit of time to share the backstory, if that's okay. When I first started working on the children's picture books, I did not have children. I like children like most people that don't have them. They're cute. You can play with them. It's always amazing when you can give them back to their parents or their guardians. And I was going to a PTA meeting, or whatever the equivalent of a PTA meeting is, with my co-author. And I noticed when we went to the school that my nephew was at, which was a Montessori school, they had a lot of amazing colors and images, and it was so child friendly. And when we looked at their library or their cart of books, I noticed that there were no books that had Black characters. There were no books that had brown characters. And, it's amazing to have Sesame Street and numbers and letters and princesses and dragons. And that is so important because it enhances creativity and expands the imagination. But knowing that my nephew was the only Black child in the class, I told his father, my co-author, that instead of us being concerned or complaining, we should be a part of the solution. And how amazing would it be to create a character in his image, which is the character for this story here, and to give it to the school, to gift it to the school, because he would be so proud. And that was the genesis of the super series, and that led to Dentist Debbie and My Melanated Munchkin.
You know, what I think, what I love about that backstory, and it's something that we talk about a lot. We talk about it a lot as a team, and we talk about it a lot on this series, is to be able to take that action, right? To see something and to say, if not me, then who? Right.
Absolutely.
And so we all just said, my son, my nephew, he is not seeing himself represented. Let's fix that. And here you are, 5 children's books later, 7 total, right? But with this book getting in the hands of and people and kids, think about all of the kids, Rhett, that are seeing that, reading that. And so we will put we'll put a link so that folks, because let's make it blow up, right? As many particularly right now, y'all, during Black History Month, when so many people like, what can I do? What can I do? Like something like this is something you could do. Make sure this book is in your kids' classrooms.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. It means a lot.
Yeah. So the other thing that you're up to, so let's talk about the work that you do and an inclusion series that you're hosting.
Yeah, so I'm very fortunate to work at a nonprofit organization in San Francisco, where I'm based, San Francisco, California, all with the aim of ending family homelessness. So I'm our Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging. And first, I want to uplift the amazing work that the organization does. It is wonderful that I have a nice fancy title and I'm considered a senior leader, but I don't have a chance to interface with our clients as much, the unhoused community in San Francisco. And knowing that my colleagues are doing the work, they are on the ground, whether it is something like a food pantry or a diaper pantry or providing childcare or helping get clients connected to services or a temporary housing like a shelter or even long-term housing, ultimately with the goal of reaching self-sufficiency, knowing that I play a small part in that really does warm my heart, and it excites me about the work that we do. All of that to say that sort of leads us to our Inclusion Talk series. One of the things that I wanted to bring to the organization was inviting outside voices, especially during Cultural Heritage Months, that our clients could be exposed to, because we are dealing with some people that are in some really tricky situations. Some that have found themselves in situations based on circumstances outside of their control, and some that have been trying to break out of these cycles for generations. And knowing that whether it's staff, our clients, or fellow community members, fellow folks in the service industry, it's always amazing to hear some of these scholars, some of the folks that have experienced homelessness, people that are experts, or artists, or activists, so they can share their story, because I believe in the power of storytelling. Everything doesn't necessarily have to be a lecture or a seminar, but to hear someone's story is powerful because we can see ourselves in them. And with the Inclusion Talk series, for every Cultural Heritage Month, we invite a different speaker to come and share their story. Maybe it's a little bit about the journey they've gone on. Maybe it's about the work that they do, the books that they've written, or just how they're impacting their community and the world. And it's been a really positive component to working at the organization and opening it up community-wide, and especially for our clients.
So where would people find out information about that series? Because I think, Rhett, I love, the forever. Stories are powerful, and stories, they hold truth, they hold action, they hold all of those things. And I love that you have the series. Where can people get registered? How can they, and who has February's happened yet? I can't remember.
February's has not happened as of yet. And thank you for asking. So folks can get registered on Eventbrite. That's the easiest place to go. That is the ticketing platform. All of the Inclusion Talk series are free. We never charge a dime. The organization takes on the financial burden when we are inviting our amazing speakers. And we're so fortunate that they work with us as a nonprofit, because some of these folks are movers and shakers in their own industries, and they're busy. So
Yep.
anyone and everyone can go to eventbrite.com, type in Inclusion Talk Series, or search for the organization Compass Family Services. Again, that's Compass Family Services, and you will see all of our Inclusion Talk series. We actually just hosted our first for 2023, where we had Dr. Lerone Martin, who is the Centennial Chair at Stanford University's King Center. So he spoke to us about the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. For Black History Month, we have author, speaker, and radio personality. His name is Zoe Williams. He's going to be talking to us about mastering the inside job. I wanted to highlight all the components of what Black history is meant to illuminate. And it's not just the pain and the degradation or the past. It's about Black joy, Black wealth, Black relationships, Black love. In March,
Black excellence.
Yes, Black excellence. In March, we're going to have Sarah Shepard for Women's History Month. Sarah has written countless books. Most notably is Pretty Little Liars. And if you've ever watched the show Pretty Little Liars, Sarah is the author of that. For April, we're going to have Arab American Heritage Month. We're going to have Mustafa Bayomi, who wrote What If Your Existence Was a Crime? He's a journalist, an amazing scholar and educator. And then for May, for Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, we're going to have Cynthia O. Young, who wrote the best-selling book, All Are Welcome. So that's just a little bit of a slate that we have coming up. And again, all of these talks are free. And I hope that the listeners will consider going to Eventbrite and searching for Inclusion Talk Series.
Oh, it sounds great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I think I think all of us staying curious and learning, and I love that you're convening these where people can lean in and hear the stories and then take some action. Okay, so let's shift and let's talk about homelessness. Let's talk about language. Let's talk about bias. Let's talk about how, right, what people, the incorrect stories that people tell themselves or have heard and believe about those that are unhoused. So let's talk language first, because this is one for me personally. It's only really like in the last maybe year, right?
Sure.
That it was on my radar, unhoused, right? Versus homeless. So unhoused is a condition that I'm in versus who I am.
Absolutely.
And I've heard you use both.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that it's important. I'm so glad that you're raising this issue, because we can be inclusive in all aspects of our language. We just have to try a little harder. And it's okay if we make mistakes, because some of these systems and the institutions and the structures that really keep making the unhoused community ebb and flow, especially in a large metropolitan area like San Francisco, and really metropolitan areas all over the country. It's really about systems and structures that they weren't created to handle such a crisis. So yes, some people have experienced homelessness, and that is what we are hoping, that it is an experience. It does not define who you are. It is not an eternal state of being. It is something you are going through. Like, I am experiencing a toothache. I am experiencing homelessness or dealing with the unhoused community. What we want to do is make sure that we are providing dignity and being humane to our fellow person, to fellow humankind, because it really is meaningful, because words have power. Words are powerful. Words are meaningful. And if you've ever been in a situation in your life when you need help, you realize how vulnerable of a state that puts you in. And knowing that you are dealing with sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's hard to be concerned about anything else in life if you don't have shelter. And what I would encourage the listeners to know is that, yes, you'll hear people use them interchangeably. And I'm just asking that folks consider taking a quick second to realize that, oh no, this is a person, this is a human experiencing something terrible, experiencing something tragic. And no matter what led them to experiencing this condition, whether it was family circumstances, domestic violence, drug abuse, alcoholism, it could be anything.
A health event, right? Like, I remember seeing the stat, right? When you, particularly as you're talking about systems, right?
Absolutely.
So it is access to money, housing and what that means, right? Like deep systems that
Absolutely.
marginalize, and our health system where people have an event and they suddenly lose everything.
Yeah.
Or the little tiny thread of savings that they had, the cushion that they had, they couldn't work. They're an hourly employee,
Yeah.
and suddenly they're right. They are experiencing homelessness because we got a broken healthcare system.
We do, and all of those are interconnected. Those sort of concerns and those issues intersect. And I think what's most important for everyone to know is that no matter what data you look at, and most recently, I believe it was Forbes that came out with a report that most people, I think it was 56% of the country, can't touch $400 in the event of an emergency. Imagine what that means for 56% of the country where you are living paycheck to paycheck. And if you miss a paycheck, that could mean that you too would experience being unhoused, experience homelessness. And ultimately what the organization does, whether it's this one or organizations around the nation, is everyone is fighting back against that to say, no, these are people. Housing is a human right. We want to make sure that our fellow person is taken care of. We have to take care of each other because that's the only way we survive. And to realize that it doesn't do any good to cast a wide net, whether your beliefs are fueled by the media, whether your beliefs are fueled by your own experiences, is that what people are experiencing when they're experiencing homelessness is extremely traumatic. And it's not just about what people are going through in the moment. It's about how do we help them survive through it and then thrive afterwards. Because far too often that aspect of the conversation is left off. You can't just throw people into a shelter after their lives have been stripped from them, their dignity, their humanity has been stripped, and think, great, you have a roof over your head, now it's going to be okay. Right. And that's just not the case. It's so much more complicated than that. That's why I always like to start off commending the folks that I work with that are doing the hard work, that are interfacing with clients more than I would, that are doing case management, therapy. And one thing, especially you, Mo, as a parent, you'll understand, and for any parents out there or any caregivers, you'll realize that it hits differently when you see a child experiencing homelessness. Seeing an adult is terrible. Seeing a child, an infant, experience it, families that are maybe couch surfing, maybe sleeping in a vehicle if they're privileged enough to have one. Yeah. It's a terrible thing. So language is important because it humanizes the person and takes the focus off of what someone may or may not have done and focuses on the experience.
So you hit on so much there. We do the work that we do at Moxie because we say it's a little bit of a head fake. That what we're doing when we're creating, giving tools, resources for every single person to show up and thrive, we can solve things like, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We can.
Absolutely.
So I'd love to hear your thoughts on what is business's role?
Wow.
Right? Because it really is business now that is solving and has created many of these issues, right? You're in San Francisco where you have big tech companies that haven't been paying taxes, right? They were getting tax breaks, right? They were paying a lot of money and a whole lot of people couldn't afford, right? You're like ground zero for all of the factors that can create a crisis of housing. And so what is businesses, right? We helped create the problem. What is our role in being a part of the solution? Maybe I have an opinion here.
No. I think that you're right. And see, the thing is, I don't want any one entity to bear the burden because a lot of it is failed policy, it's failed politicians, it's failed governmental structure. And yes, businesses are included in all of that. I think what's really interesting for anyone that's ever been to San Francisco, it really is the tale of two cities. It's the tale of the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah.
And when I think about the role that business can play, and a lot of businesses do, and ones that should play that aren't, they may be sitting on the sidelines, is considering one, partnering with organizations that are already doing the work. A lot of the nonprofit organizations are only able to survive based off of government subsidies, programs, or the generosity of philanthropy or a particular philanthropist if their pockets are deep enough. So partners with organizations that are already doing the work. We don't have to recreate the wheel. Go into your city, Google some of the organizations that are out there that are working hard and have a track record of doing amazing work. For example, Compass Family Services has been in existence since the early 1900s. For 109 years, this organization has been on the front line. So partner with organizations that are doing the work. Two is I would consider surveying the population of the folks that you have on staff, because like we talked about earlier with that Maslow hierarchy of needs, you never know how many people are one paycheck away from experiencing homelessness themselves. And how can you really be an advocate or an ally to fight a battle that you are trying to keep yourself out of? So making sure that you understand the population of folks that are at your organization and what are they experiencing? What are they struggling with? Are you a part of the 56% that can't touch $400 in the event of an emergency? Because again, you get sick, heaven forbid, there's a death in the family, something happens. All of us are one or two bad circumstances away from our lives totally changing.
Absolutely.
And then lastly, I would say use the business capital and the influence that you have to work with politicians and government leaders that are trying to make a change, that are trying to do good, that are trying to help and not hurt. You can't take the cash with you, but the influence that you have is so far reaching. And to know that you can walk into a city hall, a Congress, you can call people that have influence that some of us will never meet, and to use those relationships for public good. That's what I would tell business leaders.
We talk about that as spending your privilege, Rhett, right? If you've got those relationships and you can't take that with you.
Yeah.
I love those three things. So will you say them again?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say first is partner with organizations that are already doing the work. There are nonprofit organizations and for-profit organizations that are out here doing amazing work, trying to help the unhoused community and to do just good work in the community.
So partner.
Yeah, partner. Second thing is to survey your own organization. Learn more about the organization and the employees that you have. Are they close? Are they on the brink of being a part of the circumstance that people are trying to help resolve?
And I wonder about also, right. So then you'll, depending on the data that you get back, y'all, you might need to take a look at pay.
Absolutely.
And then some benefits, right? That is, are we going to have a fund? Are we going to have a policy that something, right? Okay, so that's the second one. Yeah, absolutely. And then to use that social and cultural capital that you have, use some of that privilege for public good. Yes. Do what you can to advocate for folks that are doing the most good. I'm going to have us pivot for our third time in this conversation. Let's talk about Black joy. Oh, yes. I am so happy to hear you mention that. And the reason I say that is because far too often in the media, and there are terrible tragedies that happen in every community, most recently in the Black community dealing with the death of the murder of Tyree Nichols by the 6 officers, and then the fire department that chose not to help him. I think about it is so important that when we are fed a loop of negativity all day, all night, and social media makes negativity readily available, that we spend a little bit of time focusing on what brings people joy. A lot of times you'll hear businesses and organizations and leaders say work-life balance. We value work-life balance, but what does that mean based on the community that you're talking to? And how are you helping to create opportunity and space for people to be joyful, to know what that experience is? To find joy and happiness in who they are, the community they are part of, the work that they're doing, and just how they are existing in this world.
So it is extremely important that we take time to highlight joy, not just for the Black community, but for all communities. What does joy look like? I know as a Black man, I am hyper focused on what it looks like for my community, because I feel as though my community has gone through systemic degradation, whether it's the 256 years of slavery, the 100 years of Jim Crow, then we look at, there's a redlining poster behind me in the city that I love and that I live in. I'm oftentimes thinking, what can I do, whether it's putting a smile on someone's face or celebrating the things that make people happy. And I would encourage everyone out there to do the same.
Well, and I think right now, I absolutely agree with you, Rhett, in terms of like in every community,
Absolutely.
leaning hard into Black joy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Because everything that you were talking about, social media and what makes the social feeds and the clips and the versus what's that celebration of joy and what's that celebration of excellence and what are we choosing to amplify and what are each of us doing to be agents of joy?
Yes, there are so many stories of Black success and Black joy, and they're not that hard to find, especially when you're looking for them.
Yeah, so, it's interesting. One of the things that we do, Rhett, I was thinking about your series.
Yeah.
So we have an Everyday Inclusion. We have curated content guides, and we have a monthly badge that people can earn. That is, when I look, it's about excellence and joy, right? There's the history, right? So we talk about, that Sunday,
absolutely,
6 where Black History Week came to be. To, whether it's Madam C.J. Walker or Ida B. Wells or, all of like Black excellence and Black joy. Yeah.
One thing that I would encourage your listeners out there, and because there are so many, if you have a chance to visit a local museum, please do so, because a lot of them, they have curated all of these amazing artists and features that deal with Black pain, but also Black joy, Black celebration, Black wealth, Black abundance. Take time to visit and to learn and to read and to study, because there is a lot out there.
And know and to know in your community.
Absolutely.
Right, the history of your community. It's interesting. Okay. So we could go on forever.
Yes.
I love this conversation. So y'all, we're gonna put a link so that you can get Rhett's books, and that's one action you can take, right? Get those books into your local community. I loved what we talked about around language. Yeah. Right? Somebody that's experiencing homelessness or the unhoused. I love this idea of partnering, right? Because we're all about action here, right? So about partnering with local organizations like Compass Family Services. Did I get that right?
Yeah,
Compass
you
Family
did.
Services, right? That's been around for over 100 years. Surveying your employees and finding out what's really, you can't change something if you don't know it's an issue. Absolutely. So how close are some of your folks from experiencing this? And then what can you do from a policy standpoint, from a pay standpoint, from an emergency fund standpoint? Absolutely. And then, oh my gosh, why am I forgetting? Oh, Paul, you spend your privilege, get in there, and those relationships, the advocacy that you could do, leaning hard on policy that you want to see. And then Black joy. And do what you can to amplify Black joy, to highlight Black joy. I've taken so much away from this conversation. I want you to leave me with one last truth bomb, Rhett.
I will. Well, first, I want to thank you again for the opportunity. It's been amazing corresponding with you, and thank you for having Everyday Inclusion and hosting this space. I hope that everyone out there will go and check it out, because it really is an amazing platform. If you're interested in getting the book, you can go to rhettburden.com. Again, that's rhettburden.com. And I want to leave something special for the Black listeners, because it is Black History Month. Dear Black people, you are beautiful. You are a gift. You deserve joy. You deserve peace. You are worthy. You are enough. You are loved. I hope everyone has a fantastic Black History Month.
Thank you, Rhett. Bye, y'all. We will see you next week on Everyday Inclusion and Belonging.